I coach at the moment on the LinkedIn profile, it says managers of children's homes.
Okay.
But I also end up coaching anyone who runs a residential service or a youth service, sometimes social workers, anyone who's managing a team. And so it's about how can I do I explain that niche without the job title? Because otherwise that's quite tight on children's homes, and I know that I do work effectively with others. Or is it more the common factors the issue? Does that make sense? Where do I...
Yeah, well, to me that sounded very clear, everything you just said. But it can be the type of thing where you say, so what's the general domain? Generally, these people are all, what would you call them?
They are, well, residential service, their job title you mean?
Or the title, like the type of work they do, the industry, the profession is?
I suppose it would be public sector or it's residential service. Well, not always residential, providing a service, but that doesn't actually describe enough because there's lots of services out there that are couriers or
Sure.
food. So I gave myself really bad sort of tied up in knots around it.
Well, okay. So the first thing is you might see if you can find a catch-all phrase that generally, but this is a helpful little target marketing tip for ideal client. Because sometimes I might say, I work with conscious entrepreneurs. I work with heart-based entrepreneurs. The fuck does this mean? Nobody's going asleep at bed at night going, I'm so glad I'm a conscious entrepreneur. Nobody self-identifies like that. I'm a massage therapist. I'm a life coach. I'm a this and that. But sometimes you got to have a little umbrella phrase, at least to wrap your own head around it. But so you might say, look, you know how there's people in the public sector who do kind of service stuff, like a lot of residential, and you give 3 examples. You give the big 3. So I often say, yeah, I work with hippie entrepreneurs who are kind of life coaches, people in holistic arts, permaculture, people crafters. I give 3 or 4, and as I say that, then I know what you mean. It gives a little bit of a mosaic. And okay, I get the ballpark of what you're talking about, because if you just said I work with service providers, right? It's like, oh, like life coaches. And all of us, if she said service providers, and I said, write down the top 3 types of service providers that come to mind, I'd be amazed if we actually had much overlap in the room. So that word would mean something different. So consider just adding a tag of 3. Yeah, I work with, because people might say, I work with relationship coaches, people around divorce, marriage, and breakups. And you're like, oh, that wasn't what I was thinking. I was thinking around polyamory, sexuality, and open relationship. You would have a different sense. So if you can give 3 tangible, real world, very easily recognizable examples. I work with professionals, the one I saw, somebody said, I work with creatives. And you see, and I actually had, on Zoom, I had everyone write down, what does creatives mean to you? Top 3 things, go. And there was 1 or 2 words that overlapped of everybody. But if she said, I work with creatives, because I was thinking sculptors, artists, or is that graphic designers? What about web designers? What about just bohemian types? What about, So I said, what do you mean by this? Oh, no, I mean more like this, this, and this. Great. There's something very powerful in just concrete examples. So that's what I would say. Yeah, and see if you can come up with an overall catchphrase, but just give the top 3 types, and I think that's fine.
Can I ask a tiny follow-on?
Yeah.
Right. So say, for example, at the moment, say, children's home managers, and there's a certain type, some of the qualities or some of the psychographics are about a certain type of person that I've worked with, the ones who struggle with being a children's home manager, not the ones who don't.
Yeah.
So is that where I would get some, just anything you can help with in terms of how because I'd say big-hearted managers of children's homes, but then I realise that's a quality, so it's only got 1 point.
No, you're right. Big, so they're big, but that's not a problem. Okay, you're a big-hearted manager of a children's home. Congratulations. So what's their problem?
That's the burnout side. Then
Burnout, okay.
Yeah.
So then it's, I work with, people in the public sector who, who offer services like children's home managers and social workers and who are burning out is the start of it. That's the basis. The more, and, There's the too soon, perfect moment, too late. So what's the perfect moment for you to reach them? P.S. on this burnout issue makes me think of, we often try to sell prevention. Just don't try to sell prevention. Nobody buys. Humans, what are you going to do? Nobody is buying burnout prevention if they haven't burned out before. Why? Because we're stupid. I don't know. We think we're invincible. Burnout is for other people, and then you burn out once. And still, our response is we burn out and we recover from that. We get a bit more gas in the tank. I think, boy, let's not do that again. I got gas in the tank. Let's do a road trip. And we go out again. So you see what I'm saying? Selling burnout prevention doesn't work, but repeated burnout, recurrent burnout. There's a breaking point there where people just say, oh, I got to deal with this. And this makes me think of when we're talking about the Island A, right? The problem, what's this perfect moment? The perfect moment usually has two criteria that I figured out. One, it's the point where it must change now. Not that it could change, not that it should change, it must. This has to change. Second quality of the breaking point is they realize they need help. They realize, I just can't do this on my own. Because I've tried. I've tried DIYing it, it's not working. And sometimes we can even hone it a bit more. So you run a children's home and you're burned out. But it's not just that you're burned out. Because burnout you could recover. But it might be that the consequences of burnout, it's like, and now you're not sure whether you should stay or go. Do I keep going with this career or do I need to leave it? And you're torn. Which is also a great little niching hack. For many of your clients, they are feeling torn between two different things. So for many of you coming here, well, I either do something that's ethical or effective, and I'm torn. Yeah, I either, starve myself and lose weight, or I keep the weight. I either go to the gym for 6 hours a day, or I never put on muscle. People feel torn in ways that aren't necessarily based in reality, but still feel torn. Do I stay or do I go in a relationship? Oh God, no matter which I choose, I lose. It's a terrible place to be. And that's where the point of view comes in. We say, I know you're feeling torn, but you don't have to be. We can get both, and here's how. Here's my take on it. Here's the third alternative that you aren't thinking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that help at all?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.